So this morning I'm going to take a quick look. I kind of got into this and was tearing into it, and I was going to try and highlight this a little bit more before I took it apart. And it's Monday morning and I'm bulling to get work done. And I like, oh yeah. So this is a customer of mine, Dan's. It's like an 07 or 09 or something like that. F150. It's a two-wheel drive truck. And you've heard me say, if you watch these videos about predatory engineering, and I had another one going on with that guy right there, that thing sticking out. So same setup, can't change the center bearing, so the rubber element fails. And, the bearing's cooked too. It sounds like it's full of rocks. It's not just the rubber element. I know they have a thing that fixes the rubber element, but the bearing is cooked as well. So there's the bearing, and you can see it's come delaminated. It is scuzzy, but this truck is clean. He's never driven it in the winter. But predatory engineering, this is a term, I don't know, I think I invented it. But see, that's spin welded on there. You can tell by this, it's a friction weld. It's a line-to-line fit. The tubing, they jam that together and rotate it in one direction, and then this is the hub for the center bearing. They jam that together in the other direction, and it just melts it together, and that's the weld. So there's no removing this, and actually I have an example of this that exists to fix the GM handy vans, which I have done a few of, and I have it upstairs, and the next little bit here I'll bring that back. But what I'm doing right now, I'll bring the other one down so you can see how this is constructed, because people erroneously think, oh no, you can press this off, you can do. No, it doesn't. I'll show you down in the next piece. But so what I'm doing now is I've stripped this, and this is a glimpse of the repair. So this guy goes on here, and it puts the center bearing back where it belongs. So you can see where that hub has a step in it where you cut the old tubing off and you press it up there. That puts the center bearing back where it belongs. This is a midship stub, so there's the slip yoke. So it reconfigures the drive shaft. So this is a midship stub. It has a boot on it here, and the center bearing will ride there. Have the bearing where? Well, anyways, trust me, there's a bearing. And then this guy here makes up the difference in the back section. This all gets cut off, and that's going to ride there like that. And it just points the center bearing. The center bearing stays where it belongs, where it is. It just points the stub shaft and the slip in another direction. It just turns it around, basically. And it's kind of like they did it in the 70s. So this truck will be transformed into having a removable center bearing in the future. And, he has this truck and he's keeping this truck. So this is a good fix for him versus just slamming another one of these things on there that's just China-made crap. And he likes my customer, Dan, likes the idea of it. So obviously we're doing it. So that we'll catch back up here. This is going to be, the next time you see this is going to be sandblasted, these two pieces. I'm going to prepare this front section. We're going to take a measurement on the truck, and then we'll complete the back section as well. Okay, so this morning I ran down and measured up Dan's truck, talking about spin welding. This is the root of the problem here. This is the old center bearing assembly. You can clearly see where that stub shaft that this is mounted on, the yoke shaft, lack of a better term, is pressed through this hub. This is before they put it on the tubing. It's pressed through this hub and then they fry it in there. So there's no pressing this off. People say, oh, you can press that off if you try hard enough. No, you can't. It's not going to come off. And this is how the spin weld looks inside. I mean, this is the unseen stuff. This is hidden inside of here that nobody ever really sees. And this other thing looks about the same when you snip that off there, which is what's going to happen. I'm going to cut probably 3/8 of an inch past that. Well, I'll cut this off. It's going in the sandblast cabinet as is. I'm just going to dust this off real quick so I got a clean surface. I sandblast all these things anyway. We're doing some work to it. We're going to make it so it's good. And we'll catch back up here. And the next step, just hammer down. When I'm working on these things, I'm kind of like on a mission, so I'm not usually messing around. About 1,000 interruptions today, so somewhere in there I've got this all prepared, and I've got it ready to weld. I've got my drive shaft welding specific gloves on. And you can see that's a first right there on the interweb, and that is because I always take my own gloves and lose them. When I weld freehand, I don't use machine to weld. Okay then, like I said, I do weld freehand with a steady, and I prefer to spin these things. I mean, we're human beings. We have opposable thumbs and the ability for deductive reasoning. So I'm a fussy machinist. I'm also a fussy welder. I don't like just lumping weld into a weld prep. I want to do it. I want to see it. I want to be in control of it. That's just how I am. So we're gonna say that this burned that in good. So we'll say that's a win for this. We're gonna let this cool. Put the bearing on it. The new bearing lives there, and the stub shaft is pointing backwards on this one. And then the other piece will have the yoke, and the slip yoke is going to ride on that stub right there, and the other piece just gets converted into a simple drive shaft that has a yoke at each end. So this yoke here, this yoke fixture is going to go, this guy is going to go here, and that's going to complete the process. So I'm preparing that right now. I'm going to try that on the truck later today and just make sure everything's right. So here we are. I'm preparing I'm going to fry one end of the back section. We had a little change of plans for Dan's F150. One of the jumper piece for the rear section that was provided with the kit, I didn't like the looks of it. So yeah, it was just it wasn't welded together real straight, and it's very critical. So I could probably balance it out, or do that stuff, but it's not how I work. So I'm making a completely brand new back section to tie on to the modified front section. So ride along with me while I fry one end, and then we'll turn it around and weld the other end. Change over here, we're going to remove that chuck, go to a pair of centers. Inevitably, you end up chasing it around until you're happy with it. Okay. Weld prep is perfect. Nice. Okay, so we get that back section assembled. We'll catch back up when I've got the whole thing assembled and we're ready for the balancer. This is the two-piece shaft. It's got a new bearing and it's got that jumper piece. That's the Rockford jumper piece. And it reconfigures the drive shaft so that the stub is facing backwards, and that center bearing presses on and off now. That's a standard bearing. I don't have the number off the top of my head. But, so I'm pre-running this, breaking the bearing in, basically. And I wanted to look at this harmonic balancer here. And it's behaving itself, so it's going to stay. Sometimes those things are fraught with problems, but I'm happy with it. It plans right out 0, and so I'm going to say that that's good. And I'm going to the new back sections over there in the press-up machine. I'm going to get that assembled. I've got the joints and everything picked for it. I'm just going to let this cruise and vary the speed a little bit while I'm assembling that. And then we'll stop back in when I've got the back section on this flange and everything all set up, and we're going to balance the assembly. So once again, hammer down trying to get jobs done. So this is why a lot of this doesn't really make the videos, because it's difficult to stop and do this. But so this is the Rockford slip yoke here. There's the stub that it goes on, so that it's going to make more sense here in a second, because basically I've been saying over and over that the stub and slip arrangement's been turned around, and it has actually. So this rear section here is new. I just did not like the looks of this thing. This was all, I pressed this up and it was uneven, and you can see that gap there. Look at the gap on the other side. This filler piece is welded into that yoke cockeyed. There's no smoke and mirrors with me. I'm disappointed with that part. Not passing that off on anybody. So we're gonna continue getting this assembled. I gotta put the flange. This is the original flange, and I just cleaned up the little burrs on it and sandblasted it and took a chunk out of my thumb. So yeah, we're gonna get this assembled, and the next stop will be all of it together in the balancing machine. I broke the bearing in like I like to do, just let it idle for a while. And so the whole mess is going in here and shortly, and that we'll catch up on. We're halfway through the balancing process. I've never shown this before. I mean, it's not like it's super secret, but what it is one of the reasons why I don't really show it, because it can be tedious, because this is a comparative tool. It's not automatic, like boom, you balance. You keep messing with it till you get it as good as you can. So it's a comparative tool. You compare what you just did, what move, you tape a weight on here and do whatever, and you compare it to what you just had, and you keep creeping up on it. So so you'll see, it's a lot of back and forth, and that's another thing that goes unseen, is like the detail to get this correct. I've been tuning on this, and I got the weight packages just about where I wanted them, but I kept creeping up on it until I've got everything where I want. So the weight package right behind the center bearing and the one at the rear axle, I like the looks of now, and I'm going to mess with the transmission end, which is really very good. This whole thing, went together, pressed up, everything pressed up good. Boobin's good, yoke's a mint. 1350 series Spicer snap tights, best U-joints on the road. That bearing is perfect. We'll go over all that stuff, but I probably could have sent this out with no weight on it. I am tuning it up, like fine tuning it up, but so we're gonna continue here with the front now. There's no real sequence how you go. It's just you gotta work them. Each piece affects the other piece. Or it can. It doesn't always. That's why I pre-ran this front section. I wanted to make sure that balance was, and it is, so it's going to live the fight for the day. stick with it. There's tricks, but I've got this tuned up where I like it now. I'm going to tack the weights on. Just the tuning process, like I've said, I keep messing with it. It's not messing. I mean, it's a precision instrument, the balancer. But it is a comparative tool, so you just keep seeking to make it better until you just got it zeroed out, basically, and that's where we're at now. And it can be, I don't know whether it's progressive or lineal or what you want to call it, but they will, not always, but whatever weight package you have down here can affect the other end. In this case, the weight package at the center bearing definitely affected the slip yoke area. And you go through a couple of iterations of increasing and decreasing the weights, which affects the other weights, and it's that yin and yang thing to get it tuned up to where you like it. And where I like it is 0, so that the customer, you know, has a long experience, you know, drives these things for a long time, and has no problems with them. Just because they're at 0, there's nothing less than 0. It's not like they balance a percentage at the factory because they know what the chassis will absorb. That's not the way it is here, because I just make it 0. That way, there's nothing to absorb. So we're gonna just work our way down here and tack. There's cases, and this is one here. These weights are calibrated, and a lot of times, like a 5 is too heavy, but a pair of 3s works perfectly. And that's the more art than science part of this. You just keep tuning on it. There's no wrong answer as long as well. I mean, there's things I see that come from elsewhere that I don't like and I wouldn't do. But especially factory balancing it, computer, it's all computer. Human hands don't touch the factory stuff. It's just boom, you balanced. Oh no, you're not. Boom, you balanced. So we're gonna let this cool before I spin it. Peel the tape off. And we're gonna let it cool. And we'll run her again and see how we did. I mean, it is possible to put these things out when you weld them on, and so that's one thing you don't want to do. So you try and be, even though you got to weld them on, you do it gently. We'll loop back in here when we're trying to do the final run. Okay, so this is the wrap up for Dan's F150 two-piece shaft makeover, and this is way more in depth than, because it kind of followed along building the shaft here because Dan was interested in it. Probably not going to happen every time, but I'm glad he was interested. So this is the end result, and we'll just go down the line here. So I did tune on this some more. They're really short because it really is redundant. There's nothing to see. You just keep tuning on it till you get this. That's 0 right there, dead flat 0. Not the number 0. The number doesn't matter. See, this is a pendulum style machine. The fact that it just returns to, that just happens to be 0. But the point is, the needle isn't flopping back and forth like this. So where we started. So there's 0. That's the transmission end. 0 at the center bearing end. Once again, I can move this around, but it just seeks it just goes back and the needle stays still. That's the goal. And 0 at the rear axle. So that's cruising about 2,800 RPM right there. Now we'll slow it down, stop it, just look at the high points here of what this is all about. So just on this particular style here was spin welded construction from the factory. And as we discussed, the center bearing, this is the old center bearing right here. And that's the trapped on one that used to live here. And then the slip yoke was pointed the other way, and it was plugged into this, but it didn't come apart into pieces. This one can, the slip yoke can slide off. I guess the other one could have too if you undid the clip. So this is reconfigured basically. The little harmonic balancer ring lived. I mean, that runs good. They don't always. 3 brand new Spicer snap tights. This has a proper slinger on it now that I put on. The Rockford piece didn't have it, and it didn't have it from Ford. This center bearing can press off. This whole slip yoke will slide off that spline. It is indexed. You see that arrow right there that I put on? There's an arrow on the slip yoke. It'll have big red stickers on it. I'll tip that up. Grease fitting for the slip yoke. Yeah, there's just, that's the slip in the weld yoke, and then it's 3-inch 083 tubing. Down here's another weld yoke, and that's the original Ford flange. I indexed them way back. Yeah, there's an index mark I put on it. So all this stuff is indexed the way it started out, but it's been cut in half, and it's got a whole brand new back section, so it doesn't really matter. The index does matter from here on out. You don't want to mix these parts up. And this index mark here to here is important when it gets put back together. But like I said, I have big directional arrows, like put this here and put this here, match up the arrows. So that pretty much wraps this up. I hope, I know Dan's probably going to enjoy this, and I hope some other people do. It's a lot more than I've ever showed. It's not like I'm guarding trade secrets, but it is repetitive doing this, so I'm not trying to put too sharp of a point on anything. I just try to show it as it really is, and this is pretty down and dirty. I mean, it's a fix and repair job, but what I always tell people is it may not be brand new, but I made it think it is, and that's the point. So this will be the first ever Director's Cut special bonus scenes. Limited edition bonus scenes. This is paint booth. Paint booth never gets any love, so we'll show that. We'll just take these all the way to being ready for delivery. So this section was sandblasted. That section was new. That section I scotch brighted that and gave it some profile so the paint would have some grip. It's clean, and I soaked them real good with primer before I went home last night. And they just hung there overnight, so I put the black to them. It's got 3 heavy coats of satin black on it. It looks as good as it runs. So that's pretty much that. One is hanging from a little drip room that is part of the paint booth, and the other one is hanging from my overhead crane. Okay, so this really is the wrap up of the Director's Cut. We'll just go over how I label these things and get them ready for the customer to pick up. So this shaft of Dan's is 2-piece, so this is a good example to use. So basically we'll begin at the beginning. This is going to go into the transmission 2-wheel drive truck as before. And so just let's say that this U-joint's on top dead center. So here's a witness mark here that I put in. You can see a little grind. I grind that in there. But there's a sticker. These stickers are pretty robust, but that's forever. And so basically these stickers just all line up. And same thing on this slip yoke. There's the same little arrow and another sticker. And there's also a grease fit that it didn't have before, so that should be pretty obvious. So this U-joint on top dead center, this slip yoke goes on that stub shaft, and it is backwards the way it was, and the other one didn't come apart easily at all. And so this one here can handle it in 2-piece. So put the front section up in the truck. The only difference is the disposable junky bearing that failed that caused all this was deeper. It's longer distance from the center of this, from the stub to the mounting surface of the bearing. It's a 1/2 inch deeper, longer. So there's this spacer right here that I just blasted it. I'm gonna paint that black too. So that just gets sandwiched in between to make up the difference of distance. And there's plenty of bolt there. Those bolts are very long. They got all kinds of thread on them, so there's no hardware needed. So basically, just slide that in, bolt that up, index that on top dead center. You got the stickers to go by, and you're just gonna bring the slip yoke up to the spline and wiggle it on over the rubber dust cap, grease cap, and just wiggle it a little bit and twist it and get it started on the same spline so that this is on top dead center. There's a sticker. That's the balance by. That's the video number 242. That's where it's going to come up. It may be out of order when it hits my channel because we got a few pieces to put together to make this as I'm talking. There's like probably 4 or 5 little pieces of this that I've never showed this much of the detail of this, doing this before. So I hope somebody got some enjoyment out of it. Pretty sure Dan will. Anybody that's still watching this, thanks. Probably said it after every segment. You probably heard me say it a few times. Just watching this all, if you're still watching this whole thing, I mean, I think it's going to be like 15 minutes, really. Thanks for watching, and try and hit the like and subscribe button. That's a big deal on these little channels, and trying to spark up a little bit of, you know, get it up a little bit on the YouTube world. So thanks again, and thanks for watching.